Okay, here we go. Anybody watching the recording afterwards, go ahead and skip the first 10 minutes. But he warns I will be capping this to a time limit because I really kind of have to. Uh, oh, yeah, okay. My brain is working, I promise. Channel, go out here, let me go to here, let me go to here. Wow, wow, really? Of all the videos, of all the streams that I've done, of all the, controversial topics that I've talked about, it's the stream where I was making, you know, stupid tier lists about like which video game was the most fun to play and like which Disney movies were cringe versus which were well made. That's the one that's deemed not suitable for some advertisers. Are we serious? Are we serious? What objective metrics, what standards is YouTube using to determine this? Top chat. No, we want live chat. Okay, that is all set. No, unfortunately, I'm not back in Alaska yet. That would require me having a uh like basically guaranteed minimum monthly income of around like 650 or 700, which I do not presently have. I have obviously way more than the zero that I had, in the initial months after I lost my job in 2020, but I do not have the minimum 650, 700 threshold. Where are we going? We're going to Google Earth because that's one of the usual requirements. Come on. Yeah, I'd prefer, to make it up to that threshold before 2027 because that's when my state ID expires. Although I would, I would dump the cash to fly back up there just just to renew it, just to then come back and be trapped down here in the regular US again, but at least have another 10 years of not having to have a regular US state ID. Right. What else do we need or want? We'll get my X account up. One day I'll be a professional streamer and I'll have like camera like Josh does, so you can see me make the X with my forearms. All right, so we'll have that to scroll through. Excuse me. Uh, go back over here. Where downloads. Okay. While we're in the wait up, how much we at? 4 minutes. All right, bit over 5 minutes until official start. Start. Okay, so I did update the Patreon map like I promised. Where's the Zoom? Oh, there it is. So, some people left and new people joined. So I uh, removed the necessary names and added the new names, giving Anup the benefit of the doubt, even though the month hasn't ended. This would be the the first time, so I'll see if that actually goes through. I have no idea what this. Oh yeah, okay. Now I remember. I forgot. There is a dude on my Patreon whose name is literally just M, just the letter M. But yeah, so as I promised those who signed up recently, I did add you guys to the map. And to fit the theme, my Patreon has the three different tiers are different levels of oil and gas producer or exporter. There's marginal oil exporter, sizable oil exporter, and then Persian Gulf oil exporter, which does also include Russia, even though Russia's not a Persian Gulf country, but it still has uh, the equivalent volume exports for the moment, at least. But if somehow that one like runs out of space, I also uh wait, no, that's not it. Where is it? Where's the real one? Oh, they're out here. Okay, I think. Yeah, I also have a backup one with like extra space that is natural gas exporters, and it will basically be similar categories. Although the top one won't be called Persian Gulf exporters because not all of the Persian Gulf nations actually produce a lot of gas. In fact, some of them actually just like flare off most of it. Apparently, don't feel like actually producing it. But that is one of various promises I have kept. Uh, my my tier of what? What tier am I at? Uh, yeah, just the beginning of the beginning. There's a lot of stuff biblically that has not lined up yet, which is why you won't which is why I can't bother like listening to or reading the stuff from everybody who's always like talking who's always like claiming that X is like literally going to happen tomorrow, and or this this and that person is clearly the Antichrist, because uh they're reading things like out of order, unless you're one of those weird interpretationalists who like reads the book of Revelation and like thinks obviously uh there's no even though things clearly happen in a sequential order, it actually means that it all happens at once, which is not how it was written. Things happen in a sequential order. So there are a number of really specific things that happen before he would ever actually show up. How much time are we on? 1 minute left. All right. Once the 1 minute, or once we hit 10 minutes, I will uh I'll do a quick warm up for like 5 minutes. We'll talk about some minor stuff, some like actual positive news, because there is actual like positive developments and stuff. To give people the last few minutes to trickle in, and then we'll start. And 2 hours from the 10-minute mark is when I will stop things, because I really, really have to. I have a narrow window, since this is not the normal Thursday, and also I don't want to do streams. I don't want to keep doing like 3.5 hour streams, dragging you guys along for. Okay, 10 minutes. Here we go. Let's see. Let me grab some random stuff. Okay, some decent positive developments. In Nigeria, we have some positive stuff for a change. Their large, massive new refinery that they were building, and you're not going to improve the resolution no matter how far I zoom in, are you, Google Earth? Of course not. But that refinery is now in operation with a refining capacity of 650,000 barrels per day, which is just a bit above Nigeria's average daily consumption now. So that should be enough for their domestic fuel and other oil product needs for like another year or two before they grow past that point. But before this, Nigeria's refineries had all like completely broken down, and so for the last couple years, they'd been having to send off 600,000 barrels per day, their particular portion out of their 1.3 million barrels per day of production. They'd had to send that out elsewhere to have it refined and then shipped back to them, which had fuel prices in the country really high, higher than most people in a still very poor developing country could afford. However, now that is going to be axed off, and this domestic refinery is up and running, and they're actually going to refine the fuel at home now. That will be seeing fuel prices for Nigerians dropping somewhere between 20 and 30%. So their lives are about to get a decent enough bit more affordable over the course of this year, roughly, as it ramps up in full. Alright. Who next? Norway. Norway is stepping into the fold to take on uh, the filling burden of Europe's gas demand. As Norway, Norway has basically explored all of their portion of the North Sea for the most part, except for this upper portion here and this emptying basin. The Norwegian Sea, they've explored about 30% of their shelf area, and they've barely touched any of the Barents Sea up here. And then they also have all the other upper territory up around Svalbard, which people from Norway have told me they highly doubt anything will ever happen there. But I tend to disagree, since no matter how super environmentalist everyone keeps insisting Norway is, the Norwegian government is actually, even if the collective Norwegian people are drifting into sort of stupid mentalities, the Norwegian government seems to not be as dumb as the Norwegian people uh, are are acting, as they keep giving the green light go ahead for endless more oil and gas stuff. And they just like issued another one, granting a whole bunch of stuff here, a whole bunch of stuff in the Norwegian Sea and in the Barents Sea for oil and gas exploration. But in terms of present stuff, additional fields that were under work for a number of years have now come online, and Norway has now surged upwards to a new natural gas production height, beyond their previous level, which was fluctuating between 12 and 12 and a half. They're now they've jumped up to 13.5 billion cubic feet per day. And with the additional stuff they have lined up, they should end up between 14 and 15 over the next number of years. And they would stay around that area if there were not going for like a number of years before beginning a gradual downslope. If there were no more oil and gas exploration to be had, and thus future discoveries to come with that. However, there is and there are, so that will not be the end of that story. And also, down across the Mediterranean, Algeria has now jumped up as they released their set of numbers for the end of the year. And as I said, all the additional wells being drilled in their giant producing gas fields and all the pipeline tie-in work and stuff was being completed. That stuff has now come online, and it might just be an initial oversurge, or it might end up being that they are just going to level off at 13 instead of at 12, but they have made the jump upwards from their prior ceiling of 10 up to or past the 12 that they were initially expected to, and they have jumped up to 13 billion cubic feet per day, 4 billion cubic feet of which is consumed by them. Uh, like 100 or 200 million cubic feet per day goes over to Tunisia, and the remaining just under 9 billion cubic feet per day heads north across the Mediterranean through pipelines up to Europe. All right. Who else and where else? Actually, I should check chat frequently. Oh, yes, Alaska is top tier. Alaska is the pinnacle. Alaska is the best. We are the best state. We have the best climate. We have the best seasons. We have the best infrastructure. We have the best flag. We're just the best. Oh, and since they're right there, Tunisia, after stalling for a number of years, going really slowly up through the 40s, Tunisia has picked up speed. They still have not updated the charts on this website, at least I'm assuming not, since I checked a couple days ago. They usually don't update the economy stuff, the GDP numbers, until like May for some reason. But yeah, they stalled out for a while over the 2010s in the 40s. However, they have been going up, and as of the end of last year, their numbers for 2023 came in. Ignore the gray bar. The gray bar, like I said many times before, is just some algorithm they plug in to just like do some weird average pattern or whatever. But their 2023 numbers actually came in as just over $51 billion for economic size, as they are also benefiting from a lot of relocation of stuff from other places, as as a number of things are being relocated from predominantly China to many other places. Tunisia has received some of that clothing, some of that textile industry relocation over the last couple of years. And also, since stuff in Russia and Belarus is now X'd out, a number of things have been relocating elsewhere. We talked about different car manufacturers who've been either building new factories or expanding factories they already had in Kazakhstan, with Kazakhstan receiving the windfall from relocated car assembly plants that were previously operating in Russia. However, stuff that was operating in Russia and Belarus, uh, vehicle part manufacturing plants, factories that make the individual like engine components, some of those have now started up at new factories that they've relocated to Tunisia, as Tunisia already had several facilities like that, so they are experienced with operating things of the sort. So Tunisia has been benefiting in that way as well. And we might as well hop over to Libya while we're at it. So, Libya Libya actually, hold on. You can even see, I'll show you for anyone who's not aware of the Google Docs. If you go to any of my more recent videos, go to the description, and there are a whole bunch of links to different Google Docs with different resources that I compiled together for you guys. They're free, obviously, and they're available 24/7. Let's go down to Libya so I can actually show you on a map. I forgot. How far down is Libya? That's Nigeria, Mexico. Oh, Libya. There we go. So for the maps, for the onshore ones, gray is area where there would not geologically or topographically be oil or gas. And the regular unshaded beige is areas that are unexplored where there could be oil and gas. And red is obviously areas that already have been explored. So Libya has these. I need to correct this a little bit, but Libya has this still sprawling area here and these two semi-bowl basins down here. This one over here is called the Sirte or Sirt Basin, and they just sold off a bunch of or auctioned off a bunch of acreage there that's different oil majors were eager for. So exploration is now going to begin there. So we will see what is found, and what is found is probably going to be quite a bit because Libya has proven quite prolific. Also, the protests and stuff are over. So those fields that were shut down over here have been restarted. So Libya is now back up to 1.24 million barrels per day. And there is they had someone come in and they've been doing fix ups and rework on some more of the fields that have been basically neglected since the Civil War stuff started. I think it's any. Uh, I think it's any because Italy's right there, and also Italy's over the last 10 years, Italy has actually been leaning Libya's way and has been kind of like paying off a bunch of stuff and has been sort of like guilt acting and actually trying to like atone for their ancient past treatment. Eni came in and fixed stuff up, and so that field will be boosted by about 30,000 barrels a day within a couple months. So that will take them from 1.24 up to 1.27 million barrels per day. And I believe there is one other thing that's like 40,000 that should be completed, I think, before the end of this year. So by the end of this year or next year, they should actually be up over 1.3. So they will actually be on their way up towards the 2 million barrels per day that they wanted to get up to before the end of this decade and technically return to because they once were up at those levels before all of the Libya stuff happened. All right, check chat, be responsible. Well, actually, back up home, it's negative 43. This is since I refuse to be associated with the American South. This is I have my thing still permanently set to Fairbanks, Alaska weather. What the? How did you just shift to negative 35? What did you just do? Let me see. Did me clicking on it somehow change the zip code or something? Uh, no, it seems the same. Wait, where's the zip code? Excuse me. Where do I check for the zip code? All right, never mind. I will be professional and fix that on my own off time. And I also even still have my clock on Alaska time as well. All right, how long have we been going? Okay, 25 minutes now. All right, then. Time to get into several more serious things. So, Somalia, for those who are unaware, Somalia has effectively crushed Al Shabaab at this point. The militant group's controlled territory has collapsed by over 20, or sorry, by over 90% since April of last year. So Somalia is on the upward trend and is heavily stabilizing and is also actually starting to get some economic influx. However, they're now having to deal with a new issue of Ethiopia wanting to reclaim their quote unquote, destined access to the sea. And they achieved this momentarily by signing a port deal for Berbera with the separate Somaliland government. However, there's issues with Somaliland in that uh, this province and these two or three over here don't really want to do the whole separate Somaliland thing anymore. So it's really there's like just two of them. And also the people in the places that still want to be separate Somaliland have come out protesting their government signing of the deal with Ethiopia and saying that the people of the region, also don't want anything to do with Ethiopia, primarily because they're feeling you know not that not that friendly towards them, since Ethiopia is doing the whole like multiple genocide thing towards different minority ethnic groups over there. So Somalia and the people of Somaliland don't really want anything to do with this and are kind of saying no. The government of Somaliland is saying yes. But if like Ethiopia actually like tries to go through with it, it might turn into something. And as of a few days ago, Egypt's I forgot whether it was Somalia's guys who flew to Egypt or Egypt's president who met with Somalia, but Egypt has declared that they will not stand for Ethiopia potentially encroaching on Somalia, which is, I mean, nice for Somalia. In reality, though, it is just Egypt locking in on a excuse it can potentially have to bomb the dam on Ethiopia's border. But we will see how that all goes. Where was that? It wasn't too far back. Uh, no, not there. How far back was it? Come on, it wasn't that far back. Unless I've just like been bookmarking way more things than I thought I was. Ah, there we go. Yeah, Egypt's president will not allow any threats to Somalia's security. So Egypt's throwing in, and I mean their air force pretty much could uh, take care of Ethiopia's without that much issue, and also bomb the dam without much issue. They would just be stretching it a bit now because of Sudan being sort of out of the picture of them being able to use their airfields. So instead of being able to station F-16s in Sudan and then do stuff in Ethiopia from there, Egypt will have to just use drop tanks to give their jets extended combat range. Fly down with a using a drop tank to get the extended range, and have a few spare minutes to pull stuff off before turning around and heading back. and I'm congested as always. I already took some Mucinex though, which are made in the UK. So UK watchers have it known. Max Ogier is single-handedly holding up your economy by constantly buying Mucinex, which you make. It's one of the few things you guys actually make anymore. Uh, Basically, your economy is now just financial stuff in London, and also as the joke from an English streamer went, all England is anymore is just London. It's London is an amoeba that's like gradually metastasizing and consuming the entire country. All right, let's get into some stuff. Actually, let me check chat, then get into some stuff. And Josh is here. Oh, we're up to 25 people. That is awesome. Not the record though. The all-time record was 48. We set that during the stream last week, or was it the week before? I can't recall. I think it was last week. I ended up doing a stream on like Monday or something. Or no, wait, it was the week before. Yeah, it was. Okay, so excuse me. I told you to zoom. Please zoom. Let me chug some water. All right. So we have the whole situation going ham wild or hog wild. So, blah, blah, blah. October 7th, there was the massive incursion by Hamas fighters into Israel. And then in the aftermath, there was the Israeli invasion of Gaza. And that's all been ongoing. And as per best estimates from non Israeli sources and non Hamas sources, it's likely upwards of 11 or 12,000 Hamas dead at this point, and versus about 600 or 650 IDF deaths and about or just over 4,000 severe IDF injuries, injuries that are enough to be considered like combat crippled or unable to return to service in a combat role ever. So that's in so the majority of weight of IDF casualties is wounded rather than killed, but in total casualties at least that's about like 4,600, whereas most of the Hamas casualties are just dead. But that's roughly like a between a 2.5 and 3-to-1 ratio, which is a much lower ratio than the 6-to-1 when they were fighting Hamas in like open fields and open areas. It's a much lesser ratio, which is what you would expect in a area that is as dense as Gaza, and then also just literally doing like tunnel combat where you're like peeking around corners and then just getting an RPG in the face. So that is the present situation as it stands with that regard. However, now it's about to roll because despite everyone insisting fervently that I was wrong and that Israel was just going to drop a few bombs, Israel is actually getting ready to invade Lebanon. The obligatory TikTok vids have already shown up of the The logistics convoys moving tanks and vehicles and unit supplies up to the northern border, and also, uh, how far down was it? Is Israel themselves also just straight up said that they are going to? Okay, I'm gonna have to dig. How far ago was it? Brigadier General Speedley. Oh yeah, this was it. So they already they told us that if Hezbollah doesn't agree to like retreat their zone of control out of southern Lebanon, which Hezbollah is not going to do, then Israel is going to go in. And, like I said, Hezbollah's not going to do that. So Israel is going to go in. And then an unnamed Middle Eastern nation, one of the ones that actually talks with us, went ahead and leaked the info to Hezbollah just recently that Israel is in the final preparation stages. And by an unnamed Middle Eastern nation, apparently, basically, that just means Qatar at this point, because Qatar is double siding everybody. Okay, sorry, I had to find my place on the notepad. So Israel would supposedly be invading this portion right here. However, even the fact that it would only be this portion is kind of irrelevant because that's still an invasion, and that's still going to trigger the response from Hezbollah that everyone kind of initially thought Hezbollah was going to give to in response to Israel invading Gaza. And so far, Hezbollah has not actually dumped off a lot of stuff. They've only suffered 200 or 250 deaths out of about 100,000 dudes that they have. And they've only fired off around like 7 or 8,000 of their regular unguided rockets out of an arsenal of about 150,000. Whereas Hamas down in Gaza had about 30,000, and they've expended over 25K, probably 26 or 27, but we're not entirely certain. So their arsenal is getting close to depleted, whereas Hezbollah still has, over 140,000 more that they can just throw away on a whim if they want. And also, they have a number of large payload ballistic missiles that Iran has smuggled them over the course of time. We believe upwards of 2,000, maybe, and they've used about like 20 of them. They did that a few weeks ago, like just to show that they do in fact have them. So they have somewhere between 1 and 2,000. It is believed it's like closer to 2,000, but not entirely certain on that. However, those plus a lot of those plus a lot of the regular rockets are going to actually get used if Israel indeed does go and invade southern Lebanon. Most of that's probably going to fall on Haifa, and the sheer density and concentration they will be able to dedicate will probably be enough to punch through the multi-layer system, the Iron Dome, plus the whatever number of Patriot batteries Israel has on hand, and their other thing, David Sling, I think, is their indigenous system. So stuff is going to get through and start causing like some actual severe damage there. But Israel is going to do it anyways because they've lost the plot, and they've broken loose from the figurative dog chain that America kind of was holding them on, because the various statements and claims by Middle Eastern social media users are partially true. Israel is, before like preempting those, though, Israel is a mostly independent actor. However, it is also, yes, in a more limited sense, it is also a U.S. proxy. However, not to like the degree or extent that's like the various militia groups act as proxies for Iran, as Israel, to for the most part, like kind of just does whatever it wants, and the like deal between us is that we keep giving them weapons and that we'll rescue them if they ever like get mass invaded again, and in exchange for those things, if we have like a problem around here, we, in the past at least, have been able to tell Israel to take care of the problem. And up until now, Israel would take care of the problem. Now, however, Israel, for one, isn't taking care of the problem, or at least isn't doing so in a way that we would prefer them to do, because they're doing, the whole just carpet bombing of Gaza thing. And, that's gotten like over 40,000 people killed now. And there's another 500,000 people that are actually like in the process of starving to death at the moment, and another 70,000 on top of that who are going to die because of a lack of medical aid. And we're like kind of trying to do the like yank on the leash thing, but it's not really working because, like I said, Israel has now lost the plot, and they're just going full off chain and doing whatever. So now that is in the process of spiraling, which is spiraling is never good. You don't like that. It leads to stuff, and you really don't want things to lead to stuff. And then also, there is the whole Houthi situation, who got a decent number of stuff from Iran over the years and have been, despite their claims that they're only targeting Israeli ships, they have been just launching stuff at any random ship they can get a lock on. And we've destroyed a number of their things, but it's estimated like still a bit under half. They still have a fair number. Primary targets have been the launch vehicles. Hold on here. Let me show you. Ballistic missile launcher, because they they don't ballistic missiles don't just exist in like some pocket space and you just pull it out and throw it like a spear. It has they're big and heavy. They have to be carried around by specially designed vehicles with and those vehicles also have like the telemetry and guidance stuff and all the special computers in them. So they have to be launched from these vehicles. They'll launch one, then go back in to whatever hiding position and have another one loaded. So the primary targets in all the airstrikes and missile strikes were initially the known storage spaces of the Houthis' missile arsenals, and one of which was hit in Sana'a a couple weeks back, or a week and a half ago, that I showed you on the last real series stream. You saw that really bright like fireball like constantly burning from that footage. That is a sign of rocket fuel. So that was one of the missile storage sites that was hit. But past that, the primary targeting has been on the missile launching vehicles, since those are, for one, a dead giveaway that they're about to launch at something, and two, it's really easy to hit because they're not fast, and they have to like drive them out to, an open space and get ready to launch and everything. So it is like it is a self-announced target when they come out. And then on the other angle, we have Iran itself, who has crossed both lines as barely as they probably felt they could try. I thought they were going to be intelligent enough to hold back, but apparently not. They launched a attack on two U.S. bases in northern Iraq themselves, as in they actually launched their own ballistic missiles themselves at said bases. It was a 27 missile strike, so that's an expended count of 27 out of a roughly estimated arsenal of about 3,000. And because of how things have been breaking down in Iran, ironically similar enough to Russia over the last number of years, but not because of war. It's just been breaking down in Iran as Iran itself has just been beginning to rust from the inside. Their production rate is not what they probably would like, but they are able to produce about 12 per month. So I will keep a off and on tally as months go by of the net total initial arsenal of 3,000 plus X number potentially manufactured since the start of things. So they did that, and they also just last night via proxy groups, but if effectively the establishment will still view it as Iran doing it. They hit one of the things that ironically enough the collective intelligence establishment was probably waiting for, in that they actually finally killed someone. Three U.S. Army personnel were killed on a small base around like a radio station or something in this area right here, up the corner of Jordan's borders with Iraq and Syria. So that was one of the things that one of the sort of go ahead thumbs up requirements that those doing the actual military planning, which is not Biden and not Congress, despite what Twitter seems to think. Those doing the actual calls were waiting for you know ammunition that will sort of basically stuff that will trigger the people at home from my perspective and from their perspective, being the US, that would trigger the people at home to want blood, which would thus give uh, those making military intelligence decisions the colloquial freedom to actually do things, even though honestly they could get away with kind of doing whatever they want for the most part, but they do want some public opinion backing to it. And uh whether this is it and this is going to be the first time we actually strike Iran, maybe. It's a fair chance it will probably be something limited, but that Iran will then do something stupid again to a much larger extent, which will then be a free hand mechanism, which will cycle up into a larger set of strike back stuff. Now, with or with aside from the U.S. and friends, Israel already, along with invading southern Lebanon, once they do that, Israel already said that they're going to start striking Iran no matter what. Let me see if I can find that. I forgot just how much stuff I have bookmarked on here, so I do apologize for that. But oh yeah, well here's one. Here's one of them. So Israel is going to, in the near enough future, start striking Iran on their own, with or without help, which they can do. The F-35s in particular, as they've already done this. They've already done a couple strikes in Iran over the last few years, partially of their own volition and partially on a prodding from us to specifically use the F-35s to test them to make sure they are as stealthy as we thought they were, which they are. They were completely undetected. So they already did a few times, as the F-35s can get just enough up there to hit things in this portion. They cannot like get fully like that far into Iran on their own. They don't have the range. They only get into a like right up there, fire off stuff and then turn around. But remember, of course, the missiles, once you launch those, they have their own range after that. So everything within this portion of Iran is strikeable via airstrikes on Israel's parts without help. With U.S. help, like with aerial refueling over either Iraq or Jordan, then Israel could effectively hit anywhere they want, with the exception of like way out here. But there's down here, I mean, is kind of a region that is Balochistan, which is bursting out into separatist uprising, anyways, both on Iran's part and on Pakistan's part. And there's been more with that over the last week and a half. There have been more engagements by the Balochistan separatists against Iranian security forces and Pakistani security forces in both areas. So that is actually flaring up. And unfortunately, some of the separatists, as always, as separatists are always going to be, are on the more extreme end and have done some, just casual bombings and shoot ups of crowded places. So it's not going the way I would prefer the separatist revolution to be going. But then again, no one ever like makes intelligent decisions like I would prefer them to. Oh, and within Iran itself, excuse me, I told you to zoom in. Zoom in when I tell you to zoom in. Oh, let me check. And we had a big drop, apparently. What did everybody leave over? Oh, thank you. Ugh. Israel's not going to do a thing. Yes, they are. Actually, you guys constantly like tried to tell me that about everything, just like you constantly tried to tell me that about everything before, like how Russia wasn't going to do anything, Azerbaijan wasn't going to do anything, XYZ wasn't going to do anything. You guys have constantly contrarianed me at every step of the road. Like I'm not sure what the point is anymore. And you even had me doing it to myself at some point, because partially because I just didn't want to believe that the world collectively was this stupid, but it is. Within Iran itself, we've had some more fascinating developments. So, you guys remember the that girl was who died in police custody? after getting arrested for not wearing her hijab, and that sparked the whole like mass rioting stuff. Well, it happens again, except this time it wasn't a mystery in police custody thing. This time, this girl, they just shot her in the street. So I'm not really sure how Tehran thinks that's going to go well for them, but they did it. So it's that's a thing that's going to start some stuff. Also, they have lost three generals now, because several of their command staff do operate like helping direct their proxy groups in Syria, and several of the airstrikes that Israel has done in Syria have actually hit their generals, and that was also announced by Iran itself. That's not just an Israeli claim, because Iran did then come out afterwards and said these are the great martyrs, General such and such, Brigadier General such and such, and then Lieutenant General such and such. So Iran is freely confirming these, even though they do have the opportunity to deny that, but they're not going with the Russian angle apparently. And I found out this isn't the whole reason, because their oil and gas infrastructure has been breaking down for like the last couple of years. But part of the reason for like the bigger breakdown recently is, let me see if I can find it. I believe this one was decently far down. Right, it had, I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, this was her. The most recent one was shot dead by plainclothes and intelligence ministry agents. So you know, interesting choices. I think it had a picture of the oil and gas workers. So there we go. So they're oil and gas workers, particularly at the South Pars complex, which is their portion of the giant Pars gas field that is between them and Qatar, underlying the Persian Gulf seabed. So they're oil and gas workers at the Pars complex have been on strike for now 3 weeks, and that was over a week ago. So actually, it's 4 weeks now because they haven't returned to work. They are on strike for a number of things, in just general protest against the treatment of the people by the government, and also because the government has been not increasing their pay, because their oil and gas industry is state owned, and Tehran has been busy spending the money on their war proxy groups and also on embezzlement, as there is a whistleblower in Iran who, has since been punished for his whistleblowing, obviously, uncovered a $26 billion discrepancy between the amount of money the state earned from its oil and gas sales and the amount actually like that's actually there. So somewhere in between 26 billion, disappeared, just like the money in South Africa meant to be spent on their electricity generation and their power infrastructure just, disappears. No one can find it. So this is a very recent thing. This suddenly like came into being. So my angle on that is probably after the mass unrest they had in 2022, they a number of the higher officials are probably funneling money away into their personal accounts outside of the country so that they can be ready to bail out potentially. if the people actually like tip over a threshold into like actually overthrowing the government. Like it got enough in 2022 to where it really spooked them. So now they're, doing some casual under the table money funneling. All right, what else from here do I want? Oops, I accidentally wrote down the same thing twice. Oh, I did speak about this last time, but for anybody who missed it, I will speak about it again. So, Iran, their gas production, their natural gas output has been declining and declining very rapidly over the last like year or so. They were at about 28 or 29 billion cubic feet per day of production. They were supposed to jump up to 35, and they claimed that their portion of the Pars gas field started up. However, now that's obviously being called into question. And whether they were at 29 or 35, it is irrelevant because now they're probably down at only like 20 or 21 because they gradually stopped being able to meet their exports levels into Iraq because Iraq constantly has been buying a lot of Iranian gas for its power plants. However, Iran has failed to be able to meet its gas exports anymore, which, if there's no surplus, then that would mean that their gas production is down to whatever their domestic consumption levels are, which were usually 24 or 25 billion cubic feet per day before the last year or so, in which, because of lack of maintenance and apparent money embezzling now, a number of their natural gas fired power plants have broken down, and they have picked up the power generation slack by switching on oil fired power plants, which is never a good idea. But because those natural gas fired power plants are offline, that has their gas demand domestically down a bit further, probably under 22 or 21. And there's still no surplus of gas available. So that, kind of implies that their gas output has fallen down to under at least 22 billion cubic feet per day. And also, that is part of why their oil production, despite them wanting to increase it back up to their 4 million barrel per day plateau, that's part of why their oil output has stalled out at 3.1 because they can't push it higher without an adequate level of gas output. Because where is it? Where did it go? I know I downloaded that image, that diagram that shows you that a lot of their more mature oil fields are reliant on gas reinjection to help maintain their pressure gradients to maintain or increase their oil production levels. All right. Did I put it in here? I hope I put it in here. It's the same diagram we found when I Google searched the last time. I know I downloaded it though. Where did it go? My brain is breaking. The only other thing I could think, maybe I put it in streams? I doubt it. No. All right, I'm gonna look it up. In the meantime, got this while we were in the initial like 10-minute warm-up period. This is the viewer talk map. This is a map of countries where people who speak either in chat or in video comments frequently enough have identified themselves from. So if I'm missing anybody, feel free to identify yourselves and I will highlight said country in. But right here, let's go to wait. Maybe I maybe I couldn't download it properly and I bandicammed it. Let's check. That is stuff. Uh, no, none of that is it. All right. Uh, excuse me. Backspace key, please obey me. Oil field gas reinjection. So yeah, there's different means of revitalizing oil fields to maintain pressure levels. There's CO2 injection, which is usually done by burning natural gas and then pumping the CO2 down. There's water injection, which is what Saudi Arabia does. And there's just regular gas reinjection, where you have the oil and gas separator and you pump out the oil but send the gas back down in to revitalize. I'm going to download this now. uh yeah, I'll just let it have its regular title for the moment. But a lot of Iran's older fields, which are their larger ones, because larger fields are the fields that are discovered first, are reliant on gas reinjection. So that has also been stalling out their oil production levels, and they were increasing and got up to 3.1 million barrels per day. They were trying to go back up to their plateau, their like regular ceiling of about 4. However, they are stalled off at 3.1 because of their dropping natural gas production. So that is not exactly helping them out. And they, on top of now not getting revenue from gas exports, they're now also not getting revenue from, or as much revenue from, oil exports, because, as I said, to compensate for those 2 or 3 natural gas fired power plants that broke down, they have switched on oil fired power plants. So now they are consuming additional amounts of oil per day, eating into their export ratio, on top of the fact that their domestic oil consumption levels have been hitting record highs already here during summer. Since summer, globally, in any country's oil demand levels and everything levels peak, they got as high as 2.3 million barrels per day, and their most recent demand levels before the power plant breakdowns were between 1.8 and 1.9. So I'm not sure what scale their power plants are. So like, not positive how much each one of them would be burning, but they're probably on, from those at least, an extra 100,000 barrels per day plus or so. So that is not really going well in their regard. And I believe that's the end of the list for them. Hello as well. Is that it? Yes, that is it for the moment. Oh, yeah. And also, apparently, Biden did agree to the Pentagon's plans for a much larger anti-Houthi operation, which will likely involve some ground stuff. Where is it? All right, have to scan through. Okay, in the future, I'm gonna try. Oh, well, we found it anyways. In the future, I'm gonna try to like uh, I'm gonna make sure I have them up in different tabs so that I can get right to them and rebookmark them. I'm gonna try to like bookmark stuff categorically and in like specific orders. But yeah, because and right after that agreement was made, we started seeing various exercises, including drop exercises and some stuff with ospreys and the like as well. So it looks like some rapid preparation for that is also being made. Now, pulling out from that, we'll go back out into some uh, other stuff, and then we'll do Ukraine and Russia. And then after that, uh, that will be sort of the finalizer, I guess. So after that, I'll just do anything chat asks for the most part, except like I'm not gonna like jump in front of a bus or whatever if you guys ask me that. But and then if there's nothing from chat at that point, I will call it. And we're already at an hour and 10 minutes, so I have 49 minutes left. All right, so China, uh, they backtracked on the demographic numbers. As I first told you, they first said that they did indeed drop as I expected from 1.412 down to 1.409. They backtracked on that though and said, no, 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 wait. Actually, we didn't drop by 3 million people. Only two. We only dropped by two. And also, they dropped from 1.06 or 1.05 down to 0.98 for fertility rate. But also they backtracked on that too and like no 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 actually we totally only dropped to 1.02. We're still above 1, you guys. We totally are. So they said for their economic numbers for 2023 that they grew by X%. Well, what they meant is they grew by X% if you measure it in yuan. And the yuan had a bit of a decent value drop, which kind of inflated some things. So the actual amounts, the actual like physical stuff, and the actual total like neutral value was not up by 4%. So they, initially it was a claim of going from 18 up to 18.7 trillion. Turns out no, their actual real value dropped from 18 down to 17.7 trillion over the course of 2023. So we've hit the wall. China has actually gone for a contraction. So we got there a bit earlier than actually even I was expecting them to. I didn't think that they would start for assuming that the Taiwan stuff wasn't coming, that that whole stuff wasn't going to start in the next year or two. If they just went about business as normal, I actually did not expect them to halt and start contracting for like another 3 or 4 years. So they have actually started ahead of when I was initially thinking they were going to. They have contracted from 18 back to 17.7. But if you measure it in the value dropped yuan from over the course of 2023, then technically in yuan value they grew by 4%. And some positive news, as I'm going to include as much as I can. We've hit some milestones in India. As of the end year 2023 data, the the number of people in India who do not have access to clean water is now under 100 million. They have actually been doing great work with that and doing so very rapidly. So it is now down to only 91 million people who do not yet have access to clean water. And the number of people without access to sanitation and sewage systems is still above 200 million. It's at 229, but it is diving rapidly. It is dropping by about like 20 million or more per year. So within a year or two, that will be less than 200 million. And in the same metrics, the access to clean water supply and access to sewage and sanitation systems in Indonesia, the other IN abbreviation country, they are similarly down to very low percentage points now in terms of access to clean water, or the percent of the population that does not have access to clean water. That is now less than 20 million out of a population of about uh, close to 280 million. I believe their exact number at the moment is 277, but I'm not positive. But they are now down to only 18 million people not having access to clean water, and they have hit exactly 20 million for the number of people who do not have access to sanitation and sewage systems, and they are dropping by several million per year. So I figured I'd since I was doing since I got that info for India, I figured I'd also grab it for Indonesia stats as well. We can do both of the IN countries. And much stuff is flowing into Kazakhstan yet again. All right, let me keep this in my visual range. So, several additional factories and production facilities are now in the works in Kazakhstan. I forget which ones were being built in which cities or in which provinces, but a factory for the production of truck components, truck engine parts, is now going to be in Kazakhstan. A facility for the construction of wind turbine components is also being built in Kazakhstan. A home appliances factory is technically there already is one under construction there, so this is a second one is under construction in Kazakhstan. And home appliances, in a generalization, when they phrase it that way, usually means the factory will make the broad collection of smaller stuff like toasters, blenders, microwaves, and things. As if when it's a factory that makes like some of the larger items like laundry machines or refrigerators, when that is what's going on, that will actually be specified in articles or in construction industry reports. Like it'll like the laundry machine that my parents just got, the washing machine to replace the one that broke back in November, was made at a plant in Tennessee, and it's specified as LG's laundry machine plant. You won't like find it listed as a home appliance plant. So when it's listed as a home appliance factory or home appliance plant, that means it's making the broad array of like the smaller miscellaneous items. Like I said, uh, toasters and blenders are just the first things that come to mind. And also over here, somewhere near the Caspian, near their Caspian coast, they are building a alloy plants that will. So they do have like some steel production in the country, but it's a lot of basic stuff. But over here, they're building a plant for the blending and manufacturing of like actual varying, high blend different alloys of steel, especially since they mine a lot of the different things that go into a lot of the different steel alloys. They're one of the world's primary sources for a lot of stuff, especially chromium, and they're going to become an even bigger source of the world's chromium once, stuff kind of unravels down in South Africa. Then, over here in South America, Paraguay has begun oil and gas exploration drilling for the first time, actually, despite the fact that Paraguay, you can see on a topographic map. I should have kept the general thing open. Oh, that's 100%. That's going to blur if I zoom in. But anyways, Paraguay is, topographically situated to have hydrocarbons, and it is disconnected from the Bolivia and Peru stuff. So, like I've said before, the topography, like low-lying basins and things, especially ones that are like decently enclosed, is one of the initial indicators. However, then to also have, at least decently extractable amounts of petroleum and gas, you have to also have the right geology, the actual rocks in the ground, which Venezuela, Colombia, and even small Ecuador do. However, that underlying geology of them permeates in northern Peru, which is why Peru and Bolivia, despite being much larger than Ecuador, have way less hydrocarbon resources and have found way less stuff. However, that particular stuff, as you can see by the highlands, crossing the intrusion, that then terminates here, and the low-lying basin that effectively is most of Paraguay is actually connected to Argentina and Argentina's geology, which has proven to, hold decent amounts of hydrocarbons. So there is actually likely stuff in Paraguay, but uh, I can't give like any decent guess as to how much, because that is a fair ways north from the northernmost of Argentina stuff, which was around here. So we will have to at least see at first to see what kind of outlook comes from the first things that get found. And okay, yeah, actually leave that up. Let's flip over to the other side of the page. Bonuses for Iraq, because of the issues down in this area, the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Uh, you know, Crude oil tankers carrying oil from Russia to India, because India is one of Russia's only two real customers now. They have to go all the way down around Africa, or they have to, charge a massive security premium, a risk premium for going through this area. So India isn't interested in paying those extra fees, whether the, additional time and distance fee or the security fee. So since Iraq is already, as I, stated in many videos, especially the most recent one, the one I uploaded today, since Iraq is already increasing its production anyways and no longer obeying Saudi Arabia's commands inside of OPEC, India has just reached out to Iraq and said, yeah, just go ahead and, turn the taps up to full. We'll buy it. They are shifting as much as they can of their oil sourcing away from Russia and now over to Iraq instead. So Iraq will get that money, and India will actually be paying Iraq like full price as opposed to the discounts on Russian oil. And Iraq, needs and deserves that money. They've gone through a lot and are still a rising nation. They're not a pompous, rich place like the rest of the Persian Gulf nations. So Iraq actually like deserves that money. And then we have some initial economic numbers for a number of other people. I already talked about Tunisia, jumped up from 46 up to $51 billion of economic size. Albania, one of my favorites, continued its upward lunging from 19 up to $23 billion over the course of 2023, riding off especially a massive tourism boom. Meanwhile, one of my South American favorites, Uruguay, went from 71 up to 77 billion, which is now has a tied with Panama, as Panama over the course of last year went from 77 up to 79 billion. But now that they've, because of all the environmental protests and stuff, they've shut down that massive copper mine that was, responsible for about 1% of the world's total supply. That will be cutting them back by about 2 billion. So, I'm, I'm downgrading them from 79 to 77 again. Then we have Mongolia, who unfortunately did not cross over 20, but they got really, really close. They went from 19, or sorry, from 17 up to 19 and a half. So close, but not there just yet. And then we had some contractions. Pakistan had a decent contraction, and they've been on a downward spiral anyways. Okay, let me find them. Yeah, they've been stalling out here, and oh, they actually were going up decently until the later 2010s. So they got up to 375 last year, but this year, again, ignore the stupid gray bar thing. Or last year, technically, they plunged down to 341 because of the breakdown of their power infrastructure and also security issues that they're constantly dealing with now. And then, lastly, another upbeat number at least, the Bahamas finally exceeded their pre COVID economic numbers. As before 2020 happened, they had hit just under 13. And last year, they finally broke past that and hit $14 billion as their total economic size. And uh, that is for a country of only about 400,000 people. So small number overall, but actually it goes really far. All right. Now we'll head over to Russia and Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine. Anything else from chat? No. Okay. Uh oh, we are done. Only 12. Where'd everybody go? What was I never understand what sends you guys away. The only one thing I've noticed is like a consistent trend of whenever I start talking about Canada, I have noticed an actual consistent trend that like a decent portion of you guys will leave. So I don't I don't know like what that's about, but a lot of you guys hate Canada for some reason. Although this time I never talked about Canada, so I don't know what it was this time. Okay, so there were numerous decent hits that Ukraine has made using their new drone that they just completed development of. So they have hit several refineries and several just depots, which are, large storage tank sites where oil and or fuels are stored and, then like carried around to different areas. So they hit a depot and small refinery in Bryansk. They hit one of the refineries that refines stuff that Russia exports up near St. Petersburg, and that hitting that far up in one of one of the only two cities Russia cares about, just like it did in Moscow, caused Russia to suddenly start doling out a bunch of air defense systems around the area, just like they did in Moscow, and they also did along a number of the border regions as well. So the point of that, apart from the slight economic damage of hitting the refineries, is to get Moscow to keep sinking more and more air defense systems around different points inside of Russia, and to not actually be able to use them near the battlefield. They also hit a larger, decently sized oil refinery and surrounding fuel tanks in Krasnodar. And hold on. All right. Hold on. I'm trying to read my handwriting right now. Okay. Okay. I was able to read my handwriting. And despite oil prices like gradually climbing up again, uh, and natural gas prices having their like winter spike, Russia's oil and gas revenue is still dropping. Actually had a 8% drop in December alone. The largest part of that is probably because of India canceling out a bunch of orders and switching those over to Iraq. And also, that is beginning to surface itself or expose itself in Russia announcing that instead of the 200,000 barrel per day further cuts that they were going to do this year, they're now going to do that all the way to 500,000. And you don't cut your exports, but still pump stuff out because eventually you would fill up your tanks and have nowhere to put it. So they already were cut down to, if they had done the 200,000 already that they were going to do starting this year, 8.8 million barrels per day of production. If they are going to a full additional 500,000, assuming that's an extra 300 on top of the initial 200, then that means they're dialing production down to 8.5 million barrels per day. So part of that is, again, probably because of India switching suppliers. So Russia doesn't exactly have a choice in that regard. But overall, the rapid production cutting is still like indicative of the whole like oil production capacity situation internally degrading way faster than I thought it was going to. Like I had initially said in April or so of 2022, after the oil majors left the country, I expected it would coast for about a year before a downturn started, but I expected the downturn to be like 500,000 barrels per day of production the first year of it going. So that would be from April of last year until April of this year. And then after that, it would be like a million barrels per day per year. However, it seems to be going way faster than that because there's already the initial like 800,000 barrels per day that was shut down in the immediate aftermath once the war started, dropping from 10.8 down to 10. Then the first production cut of 500,000 they announced just before we hit spring of last year, so right in the expected time frame, which was down, from 10 down to 9.5. Then there was the additional 200,000 that they pledged as part of the OPEC Plus thing in August. Then there was another 200 or 300,000 that they said in like October or November. Then there was another 200,000 that they claimed just before New Year's that they were going to do this year. So they've been marching it down way faster than I thought it was going to go. And this the extra like 300 on top of that 200, bringing this up to a 500,000 barrel per day cut, starting additional starting this year. That extra 300,000, I will I will say I'm reasonably confident that's just that is a no choice thing. That is just because of India switching suppliers for at least for like that amount. Or at least that India is switching like relatively that amount over to being supplied from Iraq instead. So that particular 300,000, I don't think is entirely downturn related, although eventually it would be. But we'll see if they suddenly, in a few months, announce they're going to cut back yet even further. Then it will turn out I was wrong and it actually was downturn related and they're just inward spiraling. And oops, excuse me one moment. I have to go close my door. Okay, I'm back and we have about 20 minutes left. Okay, perfect. I should be able to pull most of this off. Pico Globus, November. Uh, no, global oil production has passed that numerous times. Remember though, remember oil production is well actually here you can use it looks more like this. It like goes like wobbles around. Technically, like it got up close to 103 uh a year or two back, but then the new OPEC production cuts started, and then the new OPEC production cuts started after those. So remember, global oil production is around like 101 or 101 and a half right now, but that is artificial. Like, if the OPEC production cuts, well, for those that are actually complying with them, were not in place and everyone was producing what they actually want to, then oil production at the moment would be over 103, which is about where global oil demand is at the moment. And also, if Russia hadn't invaded Ukraine and thus spooked out all of the oil majors who were responsible for rescuing their oil production post USSR collapse and for effectively handling most of the new stuff, as much as Russia insists and would love to believe that's not the case. If they hadn't done that, and they would still be, pumping up close to 11 right now, in which case global oil production as a whole would be up around like 105 and a half or 106. Where do those graphs go? Oh, well, there's one of them. See, that was the post-Soviet collapse because of the disarray, and also because since the border was open, then a lot of oil and gas engineers, left the country as fast as they could for freedom and especially higher paying jobs over in the West. And they hit the floor there of around 6 million because that was what was coming from their conventional onshore non-Arctic, non-permafrost ridden stuff. Whereas this, the complex stuff that requires like a lot of active things, a lot of active maintenance and upkeep, that is what like collapses really fast. And where is the other one though? Hold on. Where is it? What did I do with it? Oh, there it is. But yeah, you could see the declining trend though. So roughly extrapolated out like this. The increases and new stuff has all primarily been Arctic and permafrost stuff since then. So the background decline of their regular non-Arctic conventional stuff would probably have their floor down closer to like 4 million barrels per day. So I seriously doubt, for however long uh, things drag on for and their attempted to be hidden downturn continues, I seriously doubt that it would go like any further than that because that's probably where their conventional floor is at the moment. But if they had not made their February 2022 mistakes, then they would still be pumping up close to 11 and global oil production as a whole. If the OPEC production cuts also were, which are, artificial, were also not in place, then global oil production as a whole would be up at about like 106. All right. Apart from the oil stuff, we also had several other decent hits. We had in, I believe it was Bryansk, one of their few military aircraft repair plants, repair facilities. And also in, I forget which oblast, but their factory that manufactures their Pantsir anti-air missile, anti-air defense systems. That factory was also significantly damaged in a decent strike, and as well, the population of Crimea is not as pro-Russian as Russia would like to believe, and or also Russia's monitoring and like visually, like like surveillance in every like sense of the word might also just plain suck. because some people were able to climb up, and they were able to get a big giant Ukrainian flag up on top of one of the Crimean mountains, and like apparently no one noticed, or no one tried to stop anything. All right, where are we working with here? Ah, yes. Also, their their ability to maintain civil aviation has also continued degrading. This time it wasn't an airliner. This time it was a private jet charter aircraft that went down, and unfortunately for them, in all places, of all the places it could go down in, it went down in Afghanistan. But that's on top of the two airliners that went down last year, as they've effectively been cut off from spare parts and things for the most part, and are relying on maintenance cannibalism, which is when you shelve vehicles to just like dissect them and use their parts as spare parts. And because of the reduced like air travel to and from Russia, because of them being isolated because of the war, that was okay for like the first year or so, because they were using a lot less aircraft. However, it's wearing thin, and they're starting to hit some issues. Ugh. All right, where, man, this is a lot of bullet points. Where was the other stuff? Oh yeah, also they they oh, Smolensk was where the that's the aircraft repair plant was. But where is the other thing? Another IL-76 crashed. I'm not going to play the footage because it shows the crash. It shows the moment of people's deaths. So that's uh, showing that to others is sort of against my stuff, and also against YouTube's viability rules. But they most likely, it was another friendly fire incident on the part of Russia's own air defense, though they claim that Ukraine shot it down, and tried to turn into a thing about like uh, Ukraine killing its own POWs, even though the plane was heading away from the airport, not bringing, it wasn't coming into it. And also, they published a list of supposed POWs that were on it, 17 of which were people that were already returned. So, again, as I've said repeatedly, Russia really has fallen a long, long way from the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was actually like really good at lying. They were Their stuff was like well crafted, whereas Russia's lies are just like it, there's no thought process put into them. And also, one of their Tu-22 bombers, their strategic bombers from which they launched their air cruise missiles, one of those just disappeared. as in like from it was on radar somewhere over here, I think, and or out over like the open wilderness. It just missed. So I don't know. They haven't spotted it, I guess. Like stuff like Air France 447 and MH370, you have an easy excuse for because that goes down in like the ocean and that's just an empty black abyss. But like if something crashes on lands, that carves a path through trees and like leaves kind of something that should be visible on satellite imagery, unless someone's surveillance satellites are not what they claim to be. But so, okay, that just disappeared. And that IL-76, for anyone who doesn't know, the IL-76 is a strategic airlifter. It's a really, really cringy, pathetic, ancient Soviet version of the C-17. And yeah, or technically it would be a version of the C5, I guess, because that was from the same time frame. But Russia has 130 on paper, about 80 that are actually like serviceable and reliable, out of which 10 have now been lost since the start of all this. Three of which have been lost, like not even in or around Ukraine. Three of which have just crashed. One of which the most recent one was in either Tajikistan or Kyrgyzstan. As it was taking off to head back to Russia, it just crashed. Like several others have because they're just so poorly maintained. And also from the guys who are uh, from the guys who do what I can't, and uh, which is have money and pay the like subscription fees to not Google Earth because there's much better satellite imagery services, but get you can actually get like frequently like weekly updating satellite imagery services for obviously a subscriber fee because things like Google Earth obviously offer like the free service, but most of these images, if you zoom in to the point where it tells you like a year that it was taken, you'll find they only update like once every 2 or 3 years. You can get like up to date, like weekly updated imagery services because it's not like the cameras on the satellite can only take an image once every 3 years. However, having the stuff costs money. So the part of the way they get that money is by people who want, the updating stuff to pay a subscription fee, and people who have money to, afford like, I don't know, 30, 40, whatever bucks a month that uh, Google or whoever or Amazon is asking for now, who keep track of the different like storage sites across Russia where Russia stores in like basically big empty parking lots its old ancient Soviet equipment. They've seen a massive disappearance now of a bunch of the really ancient T-55 tanks, which, kind of implies a number of things. One, they're about to use a bunch of those, and the fact that they're about to willingly resort to using a bunch of those is indicative of the fact that they don't have that much else to work with at the moment in mass numbers, despite Koigu's claims last year that Russia is now up to being able to produce 1,500 tanks per year. So, in reality, the general assumption you can go with is remove a zero. So, they probably produced 150 tanks last year, which would line up with the fact that, we caught satellite stuff of trains bringing what looked like actual modern, like T90s and other things, bringing three, exactly three shipments of 50 at different intervals over the course of last year. Now, this year, ironically, or just before the start of this year, ironically, they released a much more tame number that might be more in the realm of like something realistic, and only claimed that they'll be making 600 new tanks. Now, I still doubt that, but I will put like my expectancy that Russia's probably making more than just 150 this year. But I'll wait until we catch the first satellite stuff of another train haul coming up with with actual new tanks. But the indicative fact that they're starting to run through their supply of decent workable tanks that were not just sitting in parking lots in Siberia is coming more and more to fruition in the fact that a bunch of T-55s have now vanished from the storage area and are probably about to be seen on the battlefield, which also has another implication, which is that they apparently, I guess, didn't, well, they probably did have enough, but uh, way fewer of the ancient T-62s were serviceable than they probably would have liked. Because for a large part, they've literally just been sitting in a snowfield in Siberia for like 50 years. So in terms of like some of these actual numbers, we've just reached the point of about 2,500 actively previously active in service, reasonably modern enough, meaning T-72 and beyond tanks that have been lost on Russia's part in Ukraine out of an initial arsenal of about 3,200 and a net total of 3,450 because they manufactured 100 new tanks in 2022 and manufactured 150 new ones last year. So obviously 100 plus 150 is 250. 32 plus 250 is, or 3,200 plus 250 is 3,450. So that's 2,500 lost out of a net total of 3,450 as of the moment until we see whatever first shipment comes from the factory. Plus, outside of that count, a loss of around 300 plus ancient T-62s and T-64s that they dug out of storage and threw into the battlefield. And we were expecting to see more, but it looks like there might the proportion that are actually able to be like resurrected is not as high as initially thought. So now they're starting to lean into resorting to T-55s. When we're about to see that, and we have hit the point of 3,900, so getting close to 4,000 IFVs and AFVs lost in Ukraine out of Russia's starting arsenal was about 5,600 in terms of actively in service up until the start of the war, modern-ish ones. Then there are over 600 BMP-1s that have been resurrected from the grave and thrown into another grave in eastern Ukraine. And in terms of the resurrectable vehicle amounts uh, from those who actually, have like subscription accounts on like actively updating satellite stuff, uh, it varies between storage bases because there's not just one big parking lot, there's a bunch of big parking lots. It varies between them, but between between 20 and 50%, varying depending on base, has disappeared from the bases, implying that it either has been sent to Ukraine or at least was taken to like some kind of refurbishing plant to be stripped for parts to buff up the actual ones that are going to be sent to Ukraine. So that would be, a rough in between average of 35%. We'll round it down to 30 plus 20% uh, on a rough consistent average of those that even from satellite imagery are pretty clearly unusable. Like the one like that are in storage but are just sitting there and have like no turret on them or have no caterpillar treads on them. Some of them that look like that were already in storage before this war started that look like they were hauled off a battlefield after they exploded. So probably ones that like were in some of the Donbass stuff since 2014, or ones that were blown up way back during the Chechen wars, but then were rescued and instead of repaired or scrapped, like melted down for scrap, they were just towed out to Siberia and just like thrown in a parking lot. So that is roughly 50-ish% that is now uh, discounted or off the picture. So roughly 50 or so percent of what was in storage is still stuff that could yet be used. And that 5,600 net total for AFVs and IFVs is, or the 5,600 starting total is the net total because they were not manufacturing new AFVs or IFVs because the guy who owned the plants that were supposed to manufacture those wasn't actually manufacturing them. He took the contracts from the government, the war boosted contracts, but instead of, filling the contracts and manufacturing the vehicles, he just embezzled it. He just pocketed all the money. However, he was really stupid because he never left Russia with the money like many of the others did, who would like, take the money with them and flee to like Cyprus or Malta or something. He still stayed in Russia and was thusly arrested back in November or October. So now the management has changed hands, and those plants are actually manufacturing AFEs or IFEs. And because those are, especially, the more simplistic things like BMPs are less on the complex end than the tanks are, those actually probably can pump out about 600 per year. Whether that will literally result in a shipment of 50 each month or in a shipment of 100 every 2 months, I do not know. We'll have to wait until some update comes out about that. I will go ahead and update the net total, the Russia's net total with a plus 50 at the end of every month, though, just for safety's sake. And their MLRS, their rocket artillery systems, really started taking a beating recently. They actually had sort of stalled out for a number of weeks, but then like several dozen have been destroyed just in the last couple weeks. So I'm assuming that's because they started trying to rely on them more like suddenly. They do have a lot of their artillery, their actual artillery artillery focused here in this area. So in a lot of other areas, especially the Frost River bridgehead things that Ukraine has created, they're probably resorting to rocket artillery since they still haven't been able to dislodge any of those positions. So those have now jumped up to around 370 or 380 destroyed in total out of a starting arsenal of about 1,200 plus a net total of 1,216 because Russia did finally manufacture a few more MLRS units, a total of, one battery's worth or about 16. And the cruise missile count is at 4,050 or 4,060 expended out of a net total of 5,300. and that is from 4,000 of their starting arsenal at the start of the war, and about 1,300 that have been manufactured since then, assuming that their cruise missile factories have been operating 24/7 and running at maximum efficiency, which is doubtful, but assuming that, then they should have manufactured an additional 1,300. That will jump to an extra 1,360 once we hit next month. But out of that net total, 4,050 or so have been expended, and total available expendable number might not be what is actually believed because they were suspected of like potentially getting ready to do like many cruise missile waves against Ukraine over the course of this winter. However, not that many have really manifested into being, at least way fewer than was actually expected. So the actual number Russia is willing to part with might not be as much as we initially thought it was. And in terms of SAM systems, uh, 80 air defense missile launchers, they've lost around 220 out of a starting arsenal of 1,000. And they have manufactured, to my knowledge, like a dozen more. And a lot of the factories weren't doing anything. That Pantsir factory that Ukraine hit had started up production again, which is probably why Ukraine hit it at this particular time. So additional supplies of Pantsir are obviously out of the question now, but that's 220 lost. However, they're now at the point of likely 80 plus sunk in elsewhere because they have all the ones they've positioned around Moscow since Ukraine started those drone attacks on Moscow, the point of which was to get them to sink air defense assets there. Now they're doing the same around St. Petersburg, and they already have all the ones around the border regions here. So in total, I'll just rough round that up to like maybe 80. And then there's the ones they have, probably at their bases in Syria, which I'll just throw that in and call it all 80. So that's roughly 300 that are either lost or unable to be used like in field. And then there would also obviously be the question of how many in total would they actually be willing to part with before calling it? Because human lives, Russia doesn't care about. Total amount of equipment, that might be something that they might actually eventually care about. Oh, and to wrap this all up, if you guys have seen the news, Rocket Man over in North Korea is getting a bit prickly. He's really been ratcheting up the antics. And did I have any of the stuff here? Yeah, it's actually kind of looking like he might be beefing up for something, which is really stupid. It's that ain't gonna end well. But in terms of like why and or why now, the only thing I could like pull at it with is since uh since Russia has started relying on North Korea for stuff, both artillery shells and now also ballistic missiles. Kim might have found himself in a space where he's going to keep having to give Russia stuff because in terms of staying alive, North Korea is effectively dependent on Russia for grain, for food. So he can't really refuse because North Korea's entire existence is propped up by Russia and China. Uh, So he's going to have to keep giving them weapons, which means his own arsenal is going to shrink. So he might be in the mindset of like, if he wants to try something, he's going to have to like go now or go soon before his whole arsenal of stuff starts shrinking as Russia keeps saying, give me more, give me more. So if he's a rational rocket man, he might try, some of the island grabs because some of the islands up here are actually technically in South Korea, and South Korea has like people and troops there. Kind of like the whole thing with the Kunming Islands that are like right off the coast of China that belong to Taiwan. So I don't know, he might try that, or he might just be completely insane and just like, actually go for it. Since everybody has been just going for it. That seems to be the theme that we're running with this decade. Instead of the oh no wait it is Shia LaBeouf. It literally is just do it. It's the meme. We did it, guys. The meme is real. We look. We made the meme a reality. It's become real. Shia LaBeouf would be so proud of us. Just do it. Yes, you can. Live your dreams. It's cold, bro. Probably copyright stuff. Can't do. Oh, the dead people. Yeah. I mean, well, part of the way that I verify a lot of this stuff, uh, I've told you guys this before, is I watch a lot of the combat footage and things that come out of. First, it was just the Ukraine war. Now, also the Israel stuff. So by all means, I've been like emotionally like soul dead for a long time now because I've been watching in some cases really graphic close up footage of people's deaths for quite a while, and especially in like Avdiivka, where Russia's been doing their suicide charges for the last number of months. That place is literally just a field of corpses now that you can see drone flyovers of, and there's literally like every square of 10 meters by 10 meters, there's like dozens of bodies, and some of them without heads, some of them are like in two pieces with their spine hanging out, and so yeah, it's fascinating. They did gain another kilometer though, so hold on. Russia is up to 20,000 lives expended in their Avdiivka suicide charges. And for that, at the price of 20,000 lives and 600 military vehicles, they have managed to gain 3 whole kilometers. So, you know, uh, that's something, I guess. That's something to write home about. Hold on. Avdiivka, there's Avdiivka. So, in theory, the aim of this whole thing is to try to seize the remainder of Donetsk so that Putin can use, the control of Luhansk and Donetsk as an excuse to end the war on terms of, quote unquote victory by falling back on one of the many different, uh, often contradicting reasons for why he did the invasion that he stated at the beginning, one of which was to liberate Luhansk and Donetsk. So my whole figuring with their like huge suicide charging that they started back in November or October, I can't even remember which one. it's all blurring together, is that he's trying to get them to seize the rest of Donetsk so that he can hold the Luhansk and Donetsk excuse to finally end the war, because maybe he's had a moment, I guess, where he sees that what he actually wanted is not entirely tenable. But so, uh, yeah, I did just from the center of the word over to what's this point? 60, 63. Yeah, okay. So that's the closest one. That would be the border of Donetsk. So 61 kilometers. Actually, so yeah, 61 kilometers, and we'll be fair. We'll round it down to 50 kilometers. So out of 50 rounded down kilometers they need to go to the border, they've gotten three at the expense of 20,000 lives and 600 vehicles, broad mix of tanks, AFVs, IFVs, BTRs, and even just generic trucks in some cases. So they'll get there eventually. That's about like a kilometer. That's about 1 kilometer per month or so. So that's about 1 kilometer per month, and 7,000 deaths and 200 vehicles lost for each additional kilometer. So they'll get there eventually. I'm sure it's worth it. All right, that's probably going to be it. I have to end this now. I ran into overtime anyways by 16 minutes. Oh, wait, I forgot one thing. Sorry, I forgot one thing. So I've been saying for years, go with Airbus, screw Boeing, and it just keeps going. And Alaska Airlines, the only thing about Alaska that I don't like is this airline that steals our name. Uh, and they're really greedy and really stupid. The fact that they're even still using the uh, the 737 Max is proof of that. But uh, back over here in the U.S., Boeing is just death spiraling itself. So after the two 737 Max incidents back in 2020, where the autopilot killed everybody by just nosediving into mountains, they re-entered into service. But now, as you guys saw, the in the most recent incident, they're not that well put together, as holes are just bursting out of the plane in mid-flight. And as it turns out, as as they started investigating, they they started looking through them, and Alaska Airlines, although they've rushed them back into service already because they're greedy and stupid, but when Alaska Airlines, just Alaska Airlines, not any of the others even, when they looked at their 737 MAX fleet, they alone in just theirs found numerous planes that were just missing some screws, some bolts, some washers, some rivets. Like there were just places where there were supposed to be some where there just weren't any. So Boeing is Boeing's cutting it. Like Boeing just wants to die. I think they're doing everything in their power to off themselves, to self delete from the corporate world. And oh yeah, despite all this stuff, Boeing had like the audacity to request from the FAA, the uh, Federal Aviation Authority, I think, basically the safety manager for certifying stuff. They they asked the FAA to exempt them from like the safety regulations that would require them to stop everything and fix these problems before they continue with production. They straight up publicly asked the FAA to just exempt them from that so that they could keep up with their production timetable. So I'm really hoping that this is enough proof. You don't don't go with them anymore. They're dead. They're not even they're not even they it, they're not even like really after money anymore, because if you were after money, you would at least try to do away with some of the stuff that's clearly going to, crash your stock prices, which has happened. Clearly, they just want to die, like collectively as a company. Oh, yeah, hold on. Indian 737 Max. Where's the uh missing parts? Yeah, India made its airlines check their 737 Maxes, and they also on all of those found washers and other things missing. So Boeing is self-destructing, and I am honestly actually glad, because I don't like seeing withering corpses like shamble about like Russia is doing, trying to pretend there's still something that they're not. So Boeing needs to finally just give up, just surrender to the void. Airbus is where it's at. Go with French aircraft. Yes, I know, part of the engineering and stuff is done in Deutschland and Denmark, but the factory and all the main facilities are in Toulouse. So sorry, it gets labeled as French. And also, France is smarter than Deutschland, anyways, because Deutschland has been nothing but dumb, especially for like the last 20 years or so. Ever since we hit the 21st century, I don't know what's wrong with you guys. But yeah, go with Airbus, Airbus supremacy all the way. There's no disputing this now. There's literally no disputing this anymore. And that will actually be it this time. Unless any specific questions or super chats or anything come in the next minute, because I'm going to chug some water, account for the delay before you guys hear stuff, and then I'm going to go eat food. And as soon as I eat food, I will get right back to tracking information and compiling data and stuff, because it's not stopping. It's very clearly not stopping. 2024 has like zero, has chill level zero. Yeah, once we hit 30 seconds, that'll be it. So Josh is out, presumably Nothing from anybody else. Then, yeah, that's going to be it. Oops. Whoa, 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 whoa. No, no, no. Election season. Yeah, that's killing me at the moment because that's probably one of the reasons. I'd like to believe there's like actual reasons why my like view counts have like collapsed is because now everybody's previously in the last 3 years in the last like 3 years YouTube was actually like putting my videos in front of people because the stuff was happening and that's what people were paying attention to. But now since it's election season this year, and not just in the US but in a lot of other countries as well, now all anybody cares about is watching like political debates videos. So now, I've had the whole view count collapse thing going. So yeah, that's killing me. But I'll deal with it. Anyways, that is